Imagine stumbling upon a chilling revelation. The seemingly innocent narrator in a Stephen King story is actually the monstrous killer lurking in the shadows. That's the gut-punching twist at the heart of Strawberry Spring, and it's got fans of horror talking. But what if I told you Sydney Sweeney, the breakout star from shows like The White Lotus, once lent her voice to a lesser-known adaptation of this eerie tale? Buckle up as we dive into the foggy world of King's forgotten gem, exploring how it evolved from page to podcast. And here's where it gets controversial. Is this audio version a fresh take on classic horror, or just another way to stretch a short story beyond its limits? Let's unpack it all and see what you think. Stephen King's short story, Strawberry Spring, first saw the light of day in Ubris magazine back in 1968, when the young author was just 19 years old. It gained wider recognition a decade later by being featured in his acclaimed collection, Night Shift. For beginners dipping into King's universe, think of it as a compact nightmare. The tale unfolds at a fictional New England college plagued by a mysterious serial killer who prowls during unusually early springs. This elusive figure gets dubbed Springheel Jack, inspired by a 19th century English urban legend of a leaping phantom. The narrator recounts the grisly murders in detail, but he also reminisces about similar killings from his youth. The story crescendos with a shocking revelation. The narrator himself is Springheel Jack, yet he has zero recollection of the atrocities. It's like a psychological punch to the gut, leaving readers questioning the reliability of memory and the darkness within. And this is the part most people miss: how King masterfully builds suspense without relying on overt gore, letting your imagination fill in the horrors. Now, Strawberry Spring might not be among King's most famous works, but with his vast catalogue, spanning novels, short stories, and even collaborations, even the obscure ones get the adaptation treatment. We've entered a weird era where tales like The Monkey received 2 adaptations in quick succession, proving King's appeal never fades. So it's no surprise that Strawberry Spring got its moment in the spotlight through a polished audio drama released in 2021 by iHeartMedia and Audio Up Media. For those new to the format, an audio drama is like a radio play on steroids. Professional actors record voice performances, backed by sound effects and music, creating immersive stories without visuals. This version stretched the original short story into 8 weekly episodes, staying true to the 1968 setting, but layering in extra layers of depth, characters, and plot twists. Garrett Hedlund took on the pivotal role of Henry, the narrator, with a stellar supporting cast including Sydney Sweeney, Milo Ventimiglia, Harrison S. Guardiola, Ken Marino, Al Madrigal, and Brooke Basinger. You can dive into the full experience for free on the Audio Up website. But here's where things diverge and spark debate. Because the audio drama is far longer than the source material, significant changes were necessary to flesh it out. In this rendition, Henry transforms into a reporter delving into the Springheel Jack murders, uncovering his own past via flashbacks. It's revealed he witnessed his mother's near-fatal car crash and, in a dark implication, may have ended her suffering himself. The adaptation dives deeper into personal histories and relationships, adding emotional weight that the short story hints at but doesn't explore. Sweeney, for her part, handles a secondary role, showcasing her talent in voice acting without stealing the spotlight. Interestingly, this project flew somewhat under the radar, but Hedlund opened up about it in a 2021 Rolling Stone interview. He shared that, typical of voice-only productions, the cast recorded separately, never meeting in person. For Hedlund, playing the introspective narrator wasn't a hurdle. In fact, it was a thrill. As he put it, it was enjoyable for me, especially because the guy is quite internal and trying to rack his brain constantly. And so you're feeding not only the external dialogue, but also the internal thoughts and the thought process and stuff. And so, It's a fun little roller coaster within that. Especially when the internal dialogue starts to become very psychological and almost psychotic to an extent, then you have a lot to play with within that. It's a fascinating insight into how audio work can amplify the mental turmoil of characters, making Ting's psychological horror even more visceral. And lest you think Strawberry Spring was a one-off in the audio world, it's part of a rich tradition of King adaptations in this medium. Back in 1984, the ZBS Foundation produced an incredible 3D audio version of The Mist, which many argue surpasses the later Frank Darabont film in building tension. For example, a fog-shrouded dread feels more oppressive when it's all in your head. The BBC also jumped in with audio renditions, starting with Salem's Lot in 1995, followed by Pet Sematary in 1997, Secret Window in 2003, and Misery in 2004. What makes these audio adaptations shine? They rely on vivid soundscapes for scares, letting audiences conjure the blood and gore in their minds, a technique that often heightens the terror, as opposed to on-screen visuals that can sometimes desensitize. So, what do you make of all this? Is adapting a short story into a longer format a brilliant expansion or a risky dilution of King's original intent? And here's a controversial angle. Could Henley's implication of matricide be seen as a progressive take on trauma, or does it veer into gratuitous darkness that alters King's vision? Do you believe audio horror trumps visual adaptations, or do you side with the critics who say movies bring King's worlds to life more powerfully? Share your opinions in the comments. Do you agree, disagree, or have your own favorite King adaptation to recommend? Let's discuss.